Messi is 33, Ronaldo is 35, and we all wonder who the hell is going to replace them. What footballer will be able to be at least close to their performances? A few years ago, most specialists believed that Neymar will be the new star, and he mostly is. But we cannot say that he enters the list of the best players in the history of football, as we can clearly say about Messi and Ronaldo. Mbappe in the near future? Maybe. But let's see a list of the 10 most promising players under 20 who have the opportunity to become stars of the world football. For these kids, it would be good if Messi and Ronaldo will not follow in the footsteps of Ibrahimovic and to play until the age of 40, as otherwise it's pretty hard. The 10th place will be the only one with two players tied from my point of view. These are Eduardo Camavinga from Rennes and Jude Bellingham from Dortmund. Eduardo has just turned 18 and has already played in over 50 games for Rennes. What's interesting about this player is that he plays in front of the defense in midfield holding position, where a huge experience is needed. At the moment, he's valued somewhere around 50 million euros. Some of his records are: the youngest player ever to be named League One Player of the Month, the youngest player to cross the bar of 50 matches with a League One team, France's youngest international for 96 years and third in all the history. Last year he was the first player born after January 1st, 2002 to have started a game in one of Europe's top 5 leagues. Bellingham is now just 17. I repeat, 17. While other teenagers do online schooling, he plays in Bundesliga for Dortmund. He started playing football for Birmingham at the age of 16, and after playing in 45 games for them, Dortmund transferred him for about 25 million euros, plus several million more dependent on performance-related criteria. He plays in the central midfield position and has already scored a goal and offered another 3 assists for Dortmund. At the moment, he is valued somewhere around 30 million euros. Some of his records are: is both Birmingham City's youngest ever player and scorer, Dortmund's youngest scorer in any competitive match, the youngest Englishman to start a Champions League match, and the most expensive 17-year-old in history. Callum Hudson-Odoi. Hudson-Odoi is already a footballer that we seem to have known for a long time, but he is only 20 years old. This is a player raised in Chelsea's own academy and has 72 appearances for Chelsea's senior team. He plays as a winger and has 11 goals and 11 assists for Chelsea. At the moment, he is valued somewhere around 35 million euros. Some of his records are: the youngest player to debut in a competitive match for England, the second youngest ever player to start in a competitive match for England, the youngest player to assist a goal on his first start for the club in the Premier League era, Rodrigo Silva de Gois. Rodrigo is labeled the new Neymar. He's only 19 years old and plays for Real Madrid. For you, it's hard to get a contract with a third league team from Germany in FIFA Journey mode. Before Real, he played for Santos in Brazil, hence the nickname Neymar. The wide forward turned down Barcelona to make a 45 million euros move to the Bernabeu back in 2019. At the moment, he is valued somewhere around 45 million euros. Some of his records are: at just 11 years old, the forward was signed by sports giants Nike, becoming their youngest ever affiliated athlete. He became the youngest ever player to score a perfect hat-trick, left foot, right foot and header in Champions League, and he is the youngest Brazilian ever to score in Champions League. Mason Greenwood. Greenwood is 19 and plays for Manchester United. He began his career as a midfielder but gradually evolved into a centre forward. He already has over 60 matches played for the senior team of Manchester United. At the moment, he is valued somewhere around 50 million euros. Some of his records are: the youngest Manchester United player in the Champions League era, the youngest Manchester United starter player in Premier League, the first player born in the 2000s to score for the club, and he is the first teenager to score at least 5 goals in a single European season for United. Phil Foden. Foden is now 20 and Pep Guardiola described him as the most talented player he's ever seen, according to BBC. Foden is left-footed and can play as a wingback or a winger on the right, though Pep Guardiola has described him as more of a midfielder. At just 17 years old, he started playing for Manchester City's big team, and at 18, he had the greatest achievement of his life. He became father. At this time, Foden has over 80 appearances for the club and is valued somewhere around 60 million euros. Some of his records are: City's youngest ever Champions League scorer, the youngest recipient of a Premier League winner's medal, the youngest English player to start in a Champions League match, and also he is the first player born in the 2000 to start a match in Champions League. Vinicius Jr. Vinicius began his professional career at Flamengo, where he made his senior debut in May 2017 at age 16. A few days later, Vinicius signed a contract with Real Madrid for about 45 million euros, making him the most expensive ever 16 years old. The transfer was made effective after his 18th birthday, as age 18 is the minimum age for international transfer. He could have signed for the Catalans as both teams made offers to him, but he chose Real. Vinicius is a left winger and he made over 80 appearances for the club. At the moment, he is valued somewhere around 50 million euros. Some of his records are: the fastest goal by a substitute in the Champions League history, the youngest scorer of El Clásico in the 21st century, breaking Lionel Messi's record. This record was broken by another player, but more on that later. The second largest amount received by a Brazilian club for a transfer. The highest amount ever paid by a club for a footballer under the age of 19. Alphonso Davies. His story from a refugee camp in Ghana to the Champions League final at the age of 19 drew all eyes on him. A product of the Vancouver Whitecaps Academy, Davies often played as an attacking winger, but since has moved to Bayern, he's been moved to the left-back role. The base fee for the transfer was $13.5 million, with performance-related bonuses that totaled $22 million, a then record for the MLS. At the moment, he is 20 years old and valued somewhere around 80 million euros. Some of his records are: the first player born in the 2000s to play in a Major League Soccer match, the youngest player to score for the Canadian men's national team, first player born in the 2000s to score at the top-level international tournament, the Bundesliga Rookie of the Year for the last season, Ansu Fati. Fati is just 18 years old and already plays for Barcelona's senior team. What else is there to say? And I make videos on YouTube that, I don't know, maybe a maximum of 5 people watch. Yeah, it's a great life. He's the latest big product of La Masia. He already played in over 40 games for the Catalans, mostly as a left winger, and already has 13 goals and 5 assists. Barca have already put a 100 million euros release clause on Fati, lest they might lose him. Some of his records are: the youngest ever Champions League goalscorer, the youngest player to score a brace in La Liga, the youngest player to score at the Camp Nou, and the youngest scorer in El Clásico. Jadon Sancho. Sancho started his career for the Manchester City junior team, which did not see in him a great talent. Sancho signed for Borussia Dortmund in the summer of 2017 for a fee reported to be in the region of 8 million euros and was immediately included in the first team squad. He is a versatile player and can play in 3 positions: left winger, right winger, and also attacking midfield. The 20-year-old already has 84 goal contributions, 37 goals and 47 assists in 109 career games. As you can see, Sancho is a provider first and a scorer second. At the moment, he is valued somewhere around 100 million euros. God, what a mistake Manchester City made. The same mistake you make without pressing the like button, but who am I to judge? Some of his records are: the first player born in the 2000s to score twice in a single Bundesliga match, the first player born in the 2000s to score in the Champions League for Dortmund, and he is also the youngest player ever to score 25 Bundesliga goals. Erling Haaland. Haaland, a name that almost always appears on Flashscore when I look at who scored for Dortmund. It could be an error on their part. I don't know. Joke aside, he's only 20 years old and is a phenomenal player. He has a slightly different story from the other players on the list. When he was 16, he played in the second Norwegian league and did not score a goal in 16 games. Somehow, a team from the Norwegian First League, Molde, noticed him and became the team's top scorer in the second season of the transfer. The Austrian team Red Bull Salzburg set their sights on him and transferred him for 8 million euros in January 2019. He exceeded all the expectations of the club, scoring 29 goals in 27 games, of which 8 goals in 6 Champions League games. After just 1 year with the team, Dortmund transferred him for about 20 million euros in January 2020. From this point, I think most people started hearing about Haaland, but he continued his brilliant form and scored 16 goals in 18 matches. Haaland finished the previous season with 44 goals and 10 assists in just 40 appearances, quite a feat to achieve for a 20-year-old. At the time of making this video, the Norwegian played in 125 games at the professional level and contributed to 101 goals, 82 goals and 19 assists. Haaland is valued somewhere around 100 million euros, but I don't really think anyone will be able to buy him for less than 200 million euros. Some of his records are: he won the 2020 Golden Boy Award. He has the most goals scored by a player in a match of FIFA Under-20 World Cup. He scored 9 goals. He's the first teenager to score in 5 consecutive Champions League matches. He's the first teenager to score 10 Champions League goals in a single campaign. He's the quickest player to reach double figures in the Champions League history. He's the first Dortmund player ever to score on his debut in the Bundesliga, in the Cup and in the Champions League. The first Bundesliga player to score 5 goals in his opening 2 matches. He is also the youngest player ever to score 3 goals and then 4 goals in a single match. This was my top 10 promising football players. If you have another order or other players that you think will reach a very high level, leave them in the comments and we'll see if they enter in a future video. Because I have no special ending, I will leave you with a very important advice for your life. Always, but always eat the soup with a spoon.